Okay, welcome to Leave No Doubt, sponsored by Connection Technologies. I'm very pleased to say that I've been joined by a friend of mine, an ex-teammate, Tony Craig. Tony, thank you for joining me.
Not a problem, Joe. Good to see you, mate.
Thank you for, firstly, obviously, thank you for welcoming me into your home. How's it going at the moment? Just obviously, season's just finished. How are you feeling?
Yeah, no, season's been just finished and that. It's been a up and down season, personally. You know, obviously, I started off at Crawley, playing week in, week out, and then obviously at the end of the season, I finished on a loan at Dorking, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm a player who just enjoys playing football. You know, I don't want to sit on the sidelines and wasting my career, because obviously it's a short one. And when you get to my age, every game counts and every minute counts as well, you know. So it's one of them, I just want to enjoy my football and have a smile on my face.
To give people some sort of perspective, mate, as to what you mean by saying, oh, my age is at the moment you're 38, you've played 716 games as it stands, which is absolutely insane, mate. It's incredible. I don't think there's many guys playing at the moment at any level, at any club, that are probably anywhere near that sort of number of appearances. So, you know, that's absolutely sensational, mate. But to get us started, obviously, you know, you as you said, all season, you started off in the team at Crawley. You found yourself at Dorking, but you've been fit all year. You've been ready to play when called upon. What's the secret, mate? You know, I guess there's not just one thing, but what's the secret to longevity and to your health and to your fitness and to be able to play for as long as you have done?
It's one of them, Joe. You know, I've sacrificed a lot over my career. You know, when I say sacrifice, I mean like nights out with my mates and eating the right food and everything like that. But more importantly, I've missed out on a lot. You know, I've got a good core of mates who I've grown up with, and obviously they like to go out Friday and Saturday nights and everything like, and enjoy themselves. And boys will be boys and that. But it's sometimes I've had to put my head down, you know, and turn them nights down, unfortunately. And it's one of them. I just always knew that in my career that I wanted to give everything, and if it means I have to sacrifice a few nights out with my mates, then so be it. And I don't have no regrets in that aspect, you know, because to still be playing now at my age, and it's one of them. I just look at my age as just a number. You know, I'm very fortunate that I can sort of eat what I want when I want, and not put the weight on and everything like that. But again, there's sometimes you got to be a good pro, a good professional, and I think rest is key. I really do. You know, I like to obviously put my feet up and thankfully I've got a good wife who does that, who runs around for me. You know, who does all that hard graft and everything like that. So it's one of them. Throughout my career, she's been a massive part of it as well. She knows that sometimes obviously I've put my head down and miss out on stuff, and she's been on that journey with me as well.
How at what age, Tone, did you realise obviously how important being a professional and dedicating your life to football was? Because as you were growing up, obviously you made your debut at Millwall as a 17-year-old, wasn't it? You was 17.
I just turned 18. Yeah,
just turned 18. So from a very early age, you've obviously, when you're talking about the sacrifice, you've done that from a very early age. But when did you understand that you were going to have to do that? Like, when did football obviously become that serious for you?
When I was about 21, 22. Joe, if I'm honest with you, you know, it was one of them. When you're 18, 19, 20, you want to go out, you know, you want to go and see the lights up London and obviously the nights out and be one of the boys and enjoy it and that. But it was funny. It was like back then I used to go out like Sunday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday nights, obviously Saturday night as well. So, but I could do it. And then all of a sudden I remember it was 21 and I think, we went out on a Thursday night. And I remember going in training next day, not smelling the nicest, and obviously the booze still coming out of me and that. And then we had a game on the Saturday, and I didn't do myself justice, you know. And I remember playing the game, coming off after, and I'm thinking again, Tony, you have one chance of this, you know. And I've always been told that the next contract is the hardest one to get, and it was a contract year for myself, and it was one of them where. So you got to look forward and for the longevity of this game and to stay in this game. If it means giving up that alcohol, then so be it, you know. And it was that night and that after that game that I thought, I'm going to have to be not much fun and just give my life to this game. And it's one of them. It's done me well because to still be playing now and feeling fit and the body's looking well, it is one of them. I don't regret it and. of course, I still have my blowouts. I still enjoy myself when I can at the right time and that. And it's one of them. My mates have been fantastic with me. They understand and that. Of course, I get called boring and everything like that, but it's one of them. When I speak to them, if they could be in my shoes, they would certainly give up everything to be in the position I am in now.
No, I'm similar, mate, in terms of, my friends at home that I've grown up with sort of always understood that football was the priority, and I've missed holidays, stag do's and weddings and dinners, birthdays, whatever it is, and I can imagine you've absolutely been the same. But that core group of friends that I've got that understand made it obviously easier to do. But when you did decide to change your lifestyle, and the reason I'm asking you this, obviously for the benefit of other people, is some people might not know or might not understand how much of a sacrifice being successful at football is, and I think you're obviously an incredible example of that. Like when you did obviously change your lifestyle and specifically your football lifestyle, like what happened to some of the relationships that you had? Like how did that sort of change your life in a positive way?
In a positive way, I just felt a lot better in myself. It's one of them where you didn't feel as tired and everything like that. I think for me that alcohol obviously has a big part and a negative impact on your body if you want to be a complete athlete. Obviously there's times that you can enjoy yourself, and it's one of them, with that time when I made that decision to give up, I lost mates over it as well. There were some mates who couldn't get their head around why I'm sort of doing this, because obviously they were single at the time and everything like that. So it's pros and cons, and obviously pluses and minuses. But again, I just took that decision that night after that game. I just knew that it wasn't me, and I just looked drained a little bit, if I'm honest with you. And again, it's just I just don't want to look back with any regrets, and that one I certainly don't.
So see, like obviously, like in those early periods, mate, when you're playing, you're young, you're going out, you're playing well, you're obviously gaining attention. You end up moving from Millwall after 3 or 4 seasons. You get moved to Crystal Palace. How did you understand? What did you understand about your game then? Because what I'm trying to get at, mate, is that you're obviously an amazing defender, and defending has been obviously how you've earned your money ultimately across your career. Like when you've played, obviously you've done that exceptionally well. But when you're young and you're finding your way into a first team like you did, and you did do very early on, like what did you understand about your game? Like how was obviously football specific now? Like, what was the development of your game? How did you understand what you were good at? How did you understand how to be effective on a match day?
For me, I knew I could defend, and I had to defend first. And it was one of them, and thankfully I had a good engine that I could get up and down the pitch. Certainly my early years and that's. But for me, I was always a learner. I'll ask anyone questions, any time of the day, anywhere, any place. And I used to pull the experienced pros. Always used to ask questions. It didn't matter to me, and if I wasn't particularly happy with the answer they gave me, I'd go and ask someone else. And even after training, I used to pull Neil Harris after training. I used to whip crosses in for him because I wanted to know where he would be in the box for when I play. So obviously, if I knew his run was always going to be in front of the defender at the front post, that's where I'm going to put the ball. And I think it paid dividends when I did get my opportunity. That I think it come off quite a few times, but. And also, when you ask questions, I think, even now, myself, if a young pro comes and asks me a question, I buzz off it. I'll get excited of it, and I'll answer that as much as I can, because I'll give my time up for anyone, Joe. I think, as you probably know, it doesn't matter age or anything like that. If you've got a question and you want it answered, I'll give it the best possible answer I possibly can. But again, for me, I always knew my strengths, and I worked on my weaknesses. Of course I did, day in, day out. It was one of them I sort of, if I can be the first out in the training field and last in, then that's me. Call me busy or whatever you can, but I always looked at improving myself, because in this career, you've got to have that sort of selfish streak to look after yourself, because at the end of the day, I've got my own bills to pay. And as you probably know, the amount of players we've played with a lot more talent than myself, a lot more talent, I know that. But for dedication and putting their body on the line, that's why I probably had a better career than them. People, again, I keep talking about looking back with regrets and that. There must be a hell of a lot of players out there who can look back at themselves and look in the mirror and go, well, I wasted my talent there. But myself, I can look myself in the mirror day in, day out and be proud of the man I am, but more importantly, the career I've had, because from where I've come from to where I am now, of course I've had people look at me and go, yeah, we ain't good enough and all that. But again, that's just an opinion. But I love proving people wrong in this game. That's what I've always sort of hold in good stead going forward. That yeah, you doubt me, but I promise you, I will go above you. You know, and thankfully that has worked out a considerable amount of times. But of course, there's been times obviously people right and that. But again, that's the beauty of a game. It's a game of opinions. You know, one manager will like you, one manager won't. But again, as long as people treat you with respect going forward, then so be it.
See, like obviously you speak very well now, Tone, as a 38-year-old guy who's obviously been in the game for this is like your 20th season in full-time football this year, which is like honestly it's incredible, mate, that you've been able to play obviously to such a high level for so long. But in those early stages, and what I'm trying to get at is you speak here now with a great understanding of your game and a great understanding of the game. Whereas when you were obviously in those early stages of your career where, you know, you're trying to establish yourself as a first team pro, you're making a lot of appearances for Millwall, you're playing in big games, you obviously go to Palace, it maybe, you know, doesn't particularly work out. When you're talking about understanding your game back then, like what was the process of you know, the reason why I'm asking this is how can guys understand, you speak with great humility about, there was probably more talented players than me, but I understood what I was good at. Like, what was the process of you understanding what you were good at, and at what age did you realise that? And you know, I asked the question already about how you were effective on a match day, but I'm conscious that I'm trying to ask or trying to give advice to people as to, because every young player thinks I'm amazing at everything, and I'm going to try and do everything. Whereas, at what age did you understand this is my game? Yep. I'm going to stick to it, and then end up like obviously long term, you had great success with that.
It's one of them, Joe. I think. Even going back to when obviously my youth team days, that I just knew that I've got to defend first, and obviously if I can get forward and get the crosses in, that's a bonus. You know, I was very fortunate that the club I was at Mill was obviously defence minded, which obviously done my strengths well, and that it may be coming through a different youth system, it could have been a completely different story. You know, because obviously I could have been looking for more attacking fullbacks, which obviously was far from my strength. But again, I think sometimes you turn up to places, your face fits, but more importantly, your strengths in your game can obviously adapt well to that team. And again, it was just, I knew my job. You know, my job was to keep that right winger quiet in my younger days, and I was always told if you can get forward and get crosses in, that's a bonus, which was brilliant for me. You know, it's brilliant for me until I got to about 26, and obviously I see the fullback position changing very, very rapidly. You needed to be attack-minded, obviously an engine getting up and down all the time, but more importantly, you had to be good in possession. And all the attacks started more or less from the fullbacks. Obviously nowadays it's changed into the centre-half starting everything off, but it sort of changes routine, doesn't it? You know, obviously at one point fullbacks going in centre-halves, and again, someone will find a new formation, a new style of playing, it will start somewhere. That's the beauty of this game. But it was one of them, going back to that, Joe, it was 26 where I had to make a decision that obviously, do I stick with left back or do I go into centre half? You know, and I was very fortunate that there was a lot of good people who I sort of lent on to and got advice and said, right, and what do you see doing? And I'll be honest with you, Joe, I think that is probably the best footballing decision I ever made, was going over to centre half. Because if I didn't, I think I'd have been out of the game by 29, 30, 100%. I know that. Because as you was a fullback yourself, Joe, you know, obviously when we played at Bristol Rovers, you used to start a lot of the attacks off, and obviously comfortable in possession, out wide, you know, where I feel much more comfortable in the middle of the pitch in possession, because obviously you can see the whole pitch and you're not caught in tight areas. And again, that's going into my weaknesses back looking then. But again, you know, sometimes you've got to make a decision in life and in your career, and at that moment, I think for me to still be in that game, I think it just shows it's the right decision going forward.
A lot of guys, obviously, with their positions, Tone, they just sort of fall into it from an early age, don't they? I think I had this conversation with someone else the other day, that I've never chosen to play where I want to play, if that makes sense. Like, I've always been asked by a manager, like, I played as a wide player when I was young, and then the next coach at under 16s was like, I think you're more suited to being a midfielder, so I played there. The next coach a few years later says, I think you're more suited to being a defender, so I went there. like, and I've obviously just drifted apart from a manager asking me, like, I think you should play there. I never made the conscious decision, or I've never been to anybody and said, like, I think I'd like to play here, or sat down and evaluated my own game and I think I'm most suited to this position.
Yep.
What was that process like for you? And can you give us much, obviously, insight into the thinking and the detail that you went in behind that decision? Because a lot of guys obviously will be evaluating their games and think, right, where is the best position that I'm going to be able to not only be effective on a match day, but ultimately make a career, right? Was that your decision, or did somebody come to you and say...
It was my decision, to be honest with you. I remember the season very, very well. There was myself, a left-back, and there was another left-back called Scott Barron. And Kenny Jackett was the manager at the time, and me and Scott used to have a running joke at the time that the next team we was playing, I knew if they had a good right winger, I was playing, or if they didn't, and they obviously played three across the middle, or obviously a centre midfielder out wide, I knew Scott Barron would be playing because obviously he was better going forward.
Does that mean James Clark?
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, no, definitely when you look back at it. But no, it's one of them that. So it was a running joke between the two of us, and I think I played 25, 26 games that season, Joe. Yeah, which some people will be happy with, you know, that they will. But for me, I'm not happy with them sort of numbers, Joe. You know, I'm a man who prides himself on playing week in, week out, and obviously, more importantly, gives the best version of himself. But as you said, you know, as the old dad's saying, earn your money. That's what I've always been told, you know, and certainly at a younger age, like, you go and be the best version of you, and more importantly, you can look yourself in the mirror and you've earned that money. But it come a time that it was a running joke, but deep down it hurt me a little bit, to be honest with you, because it's probably the sort of, you always judged every single day, but it was the first time that I knew it was holding me back, you know. And again, I worked day in, day out, trying to get better, getting forward, timings of runs, which wasn't a problem and all that. But again, in that possession and keeping the ball and everything like that, it just wasn't my strength out playing left back. So, it was funny. I think round about probably February time of that season, I pulled a couple of the older pros. I spoke to Kenny Jackett, Richard Shaw. He was brilliant with me, you know. He's someone who I met at the right time, probably when I was about 19, 20. Experienced pro, and he was no one who played to 38, 39. I remember saying to him, wow, Shazza, like, that's incredible you playing at that. Like, if I can have half the career and get like early 30s, I'll be buzzing. So, but to get where I am now, it just shows you have them discussions back then. But no, I just asked for advice from him, Darren Ward, Neil Harris, just saying, like, obviously, where do you particularly see me going? Like, this is where I think maybe the time to go across and that. And I've always been good in the air. I've always known how to use my body, protect my body, because obviously I ain't going to be the tallest centre-half in the world, and I know that. I'm not going to be the biggest built centre-half in the world as well. But, again, I think I've always sort of used my body well to protect myself. I've always had not a bad leap and that, and obviously the pace is okay. You know what I mean? I ain't going to say I'm like rapid, because obviously I'm not. But, again, I can read the game well as well. You know, obviously I've got, at this point, numerous games under my belt and experience, and... So it was one of them. We had an interesting discussion with Kenny. He was fantastic with me, you know, and he actually agreed with me as well. He could see it. But he could see me transitioning over there to centre-half, but not as his first team regular.
Right, okay.
You know, so it was one of them that I knew then it was my decision to leave Millwall at that time. You know, Kenny had so much belief in me. He trusted me, yeah, he did. But again, I knew that was the key moment of my career going forward. I had to make that decision, because if I didn't make it then, I'd have been done. And, you know, that would have been the realism of it. And I'd have gone down the leagues, and I think I'd have gone down the leagues very, very quickly. So, a decision from myself, and thankfully I had Brentford coming, you know, with Uwe Rosler.
What, but had you had the conversation with Brentford? Is that I want to come in as a left-side centre-half?
As a left-side centre-half, yeah, that was my discussion. And then it was funny, because one of the games they come and scouted me, we had injuries, and then they put me as centre-half. It was against Watford on a Tuesday night. And just shows sometimes it's just meant to be, innit? You know, obviously I knew they were sort of interested and looking and that, and then all of a sudden the night they come, that's the position I played in. So thankfully I done a good account of myself that, and they signed me over the summer, and it's one of them. Kenny didn't want me to go, but he understood the reasons going forward, and he did. You know, it's one of them. He said, "I'll do anything to keep you," and that he even offered me like a new contract and everything like that. But I'm one of them. Once I make my mind up, I'm all in. You know, and obviously Brentford was on a project there, the start of the project, and it was something I wanted to be a part of as well going forward.
Welcome to the Leave No Doubt podcast. I'm so excited to welcome our new sponsors, Connection Technologies, a market leader in business-to-business tools ranging from business mobile, hosted telephony and fixed line services. Head over to their website at www.connection-technologies.co.uk, fill in their inquiry web form and find out how Connection Technologies can support your business moving forward. See, like in probably up until that point, Tone, you'd made decisions that had seen you move away from Millwall. You'd obviously gone to Palace, and those experiences that you had, did that like, you know, I've got to be honest, what like or ask you, was that Palace move in the end obviously something that was super exciting that ended up becoming a little bit underwhelming? Like, how did that go when you move, you go to something that's super exciting, like a positive move, and then after one season you find yourself back at Millwall? Like, was that a funny little feeling?
Joe, I've been well documented. It was a tough move. You know, obviously, you know the team I support. Obviously, being a Millwall boy through and through, all my mates are Millwall through and through, and where I live is predominantly a Millwall area. You know, and it was a tricky time because obviously I knew the sort of backlash I'd get, and I did. You know, it was one of them where I had times where I'm out with the wife, girlfriend back then, and it was a few names which you get caught and everything like that. So I knew what was coming in that aspect. I really, really did. But again, Millwall in League One and obviously Crystal Palace are in the Championship. And it's one of them. I always want to test myself. I want to test myself against anyone, and certainly the best. And it's just one of them. It just seemed to just didn't work. If I'm honest with you, I played 14 games for him. Peter Taylor got the sack, and then under the second game under Neil Warnock, I dislocated my shoulder, and I was out for 4 months with that. And it's one of them. Neil Warnock signed a couple of players, and he signed a player in my position, Clint Hill, who done, I'll be honest with you, exceptionally well. You know, he suited his style of play, Neil Warnock, which I believed I would have as well, because he liked a defensive-minded fullback. And again, you can sort of time your runs going forward, but he didn't want many of them. You know, he wanted to shore up the back and keep clean sheets and everything like that. But when 4 months out of the game, which is a long, long time, and that certainly with a new manager, and he brought his new people in, and more importantly, the new people come and done exceptionally well. And they was in the playoffs when I got back, and I didn't get back in and everything like that. So yeah, it's one of them. I look back on that move is obviously it was a step up, and some things in life just don't work, you know. And it's one of them. I don't have regret doing it or anything like that. And I was just so grateful that obviously Kenny Jackett first signing to bring me back. And it was funny because Neil Warnock said to me, "Tony, I've got you 3 clubs who are interested in you." He goes, "I know where you're going to go." He goes, "But I've made phone calls for you, and they're interested," which was brilliant from Neil Warnock, you know, because obviously he could have just left me to my own device and do what I wanted to do, or more importantly, go and look for my own moves and that. And I had Swansea, Brighton, and Millwall, and obviously in my mind it was an easy decision where to go. And again, I went back, and I enjoyed it. And I think you see a theme in a minute, Joe. You know, I leave and always seem to come back, you know. But at the old age, at 35, 36, unfortunately, that dream don't come no more, you know. Obviously, when I went to Bristol, unfortunately, I didn't go back. But no, it's one of them, you know. That's how football goes.
It was 4 times in the end that you obviously went and come back, wasn't it? Which is impressive.
Ain't bad, mate, is it? Do you know what I mean? So they always seem to like me back, which is nice and that. But no, it's an easy decision for me, you know, Joe. It's one of them. I think when we first met, obviously in Bristol, that was a massive, massive decision for me to move away from London. First time throughout my career. It was tough. You know, the family didn't come with me. They stayed in London, and I was very fortunate that I had a good man and a good manager, Darryl Clark, who understood the situation. He understood what was needed off of me, but more importantly, he knew I'm a family man. My family come first in anything, you know. And when I went to Bristol, it was a big decision from, I'm not saying only me, the family. You know, is obviously make sure they're okay with it and that. But Darryl sort of he made it easier for me because obviously, as you always used to say to me, Joe, you ever here? You know, and he used to give me days off very, very kindly, and we had a good understanding, which made that move easier, and that. But more importantly, it made me happy, and I think that's where the performances come at Bristol Rovers.
Spent a long old time on the M4, didn't we, mate? In that
mate,
2.5 years.
Yeah, didn't we? I don't think I drove once, did I? I think it was always you. But I always left petrol money, though, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you sorted me out. You actually played about 120 times, mate, in 2.5 years at Bristol Rovers. You played in almost in every game that you were fit for, really. I want to get when we talk about the clubs that you've been at, mate, and I want to touch on just quickly. Obviously, you live through football in terms of when there was no social media, and now it's all about social media, right? And you've never really bought into that social media stuff. It's not something that you do. But back in the day, we'll talk about Millwall, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Bristol Rovers as well. These 4 clubs all have certain DNAs of fan bases where they expect 100% commitment. It's similar to I grew up in Portsmouth. It's a very similar club that the DNA of the fan base is they're just like.
I know you get Portsmouth here at some point.
Yeah, I've got to talk about them at some point. Every podcast I've got to mention them. And but they just demand full commitment, right, of their players, and they don't accept anything less. And they've got that sort of DNA, obviously, that runs through a certain amount of football clubs in the country. But you've played for 4 of them. Yep. And you never had that social media where people can write a comment to you and say, oh, you were good or you were bad or that would affect you. But you've obviously just given us an insight then when you moved from Millwall to Palace the first time, that you were getting actually people coming up to you in real life and giving you
coming
abuse.
To the front door.
Yeah.
You know, I had people coming to the front door and everything like that.
Bonkers, right?
Yeah, no, which it wasn't nice. I understood it. You know, I did, but there were some people who went over the line. There was, you know, obviously... I had my girlfriend there. I didn't want her to see that. But deep down, I knew what would sort of happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but it's one of them, that's football. You know, it's people's lives. And again, I think sometimes I just look at it and going back to Joe, obviously, when I've had bad games and people say this and you hear stuff, of course you do. But I always look back and go, I'm living your dream. You know, I'm a Mill kid as a boy. I'm living my dream, and I look at them sometimes and think, yeah, again, I'm living your dream as well, mate, because you'd love to be in my position. That's the way I look at it, you know, and everything like that. But I know the responsibility of that as well, you know, because again, I get it from my family. You know, obviously when we lost the game, like what's happening, and obviously I got my mates as well, so I sort of never got away from it, you know. But again, they all knew that obviously deep down they all wanted the best for me, and again they all proud of me as well, which is what all I can ask for.
So I'm interested, mate, in finding out because when I obviously I've never played for Portsmouth, so I don't know. I don't have that friendship group or family that are putting pressure on me to win games for their club, like you did, like for such a long period of time. And even now, like across my career, I can remember if my friends or my family are on me to, can we come and watch the game? That always added a certain element of pressure to a match because I'm thinking I've got to play well here because my mates are coming. I've got to play well because my family are coming. And actually, across the years, I ended up just sort of saying I just prefer it if you didn't bother. Not many people come and watch me these days, and I actually prefer it because I just get on with the game. I don't have to worry about tickets. Don't have to worry in the back of my mind about my friends are coming, so I better perform. Whereas you had to deal with that every single game for years and years.
But do you know, St. Joe, I thrive more when they're there. I really do. I prefer it when my family are there, and I know they're with me. You know, that's what I've always said. You know, I'm from a tight knit family, and everything like that. And I want them to come everywhere. You know, when they don't come, I'm like, well, why? You know,
is that what it was like?
Yeah, that's what it's like. Even to today, it is like that today. I still want them to come and watch me and be a part of my journey. You know, because, I wouldn't say my journey, it's our journey. That's what I've always said with my family, it's our journey. We're all in it together, you know. Obviously, my mum and dad back in the day, they sacrificed stuff for me. You know, they were travelling me up and down the M25, taking me to when I was at Wimbledon as a kid. So, again, my dad was getting in from work, eating his dinner quickly, bang, he's back out. You know, and obviously we're not getting back till 9 at night. And he's been out in the work till from 6:30 in the morning. My mum's obviously cooking dinner, obviously looking after the house and everything like that. And again, my wife and my kids, You know, like I said, I keep talking about my wife. She's a massive, massive journey. It is. You know, she sacrificed stuff. She sacrificed, obviously, her work, her job, obviously, when we had kids and everything like that. So her career going forward, she sacrificed that for my career, you know. So don't worry about it. There is a time when I've got to give back. But no, it's one of them, like I say, it's our journey. You know, when I've had success, I've always got them involved. Always have, and I always will. But it's one of them, obviously, in football, I've had lows as well. And they've been there for me. They're the ones I've lent on at key moments where things ain't going particularly well through football and that. And obviously, you sort of, I would never say not fall out of love with it, but thinking, oh, when's it going to change? When's it going to change? And they're the people you go to, you know, the people who are closest to you, who have been there. They see you in the good and the bad. But more importantly, it's one of them, Joe. Obviously, when things are going well, mate, you get mates everywhere, didn't you? You know, knocking on the door left, right and centre. But I'm telling you now, when it goes low, then mates can easily go missing and everything like that. And I do remember that. So, again, the people who have been there through the bad times are the ones who, yeah, obviously I've got so much time and thanks for.
So talk to me about the process of you getting ready for a match day, mate. Especially it's like, I know obviously, but you've not just been at Millwall and you've had obviously a lot of clubs other than that. But when you're getting obviously into the process and the build up to a match day, like, are you feeling, especially probably in now as Millwall days, more so than others, because obviously the support that you've got from your family and your friends and stuff, and it being your football club, but like, did you feel pressure when you went into games? Like, were you excited? Were you a little bit nervous? Like, how did you deal with like the?
I'm one of them, Joe. Like, I'm always excited. You know, do you know what I love is that it's the unknown. Like, obviously, you know, you're playing a game of football, but you don't know what's coming. You know, obviously, in a split second, something can change in football. And but for me, with I'm a routine man. If I'm honest with you, I knew that with my mates and my family, tickets had to be sorted on a Friday. If you ring me on a Saturday, you're not getting them. That was just the reality of it, because I'm full focus now. If I'm honest with you, I'm a man who sort of keeps the same routine every single game. I eat the same food. I eat the same 2 bags of salt vinegar going to a game in a chocolate bar. I've done that from 16 to now. That's just, someone told me it can stop cramp. I believe you. If you tell me something stops cramp or it gives you a good game, I'm having it. Not a problem. Someone said to me, do 100 press-ups, you'll have a world-class game. No problem, I do 100 press-ups. That's what I do, you know. That's the sort of man I am. But no, I'm a routine man, you know. Friday, again, tickets, player passes have all got to be sorted. Don't bother ringing me up on a Saturday. I like my lay-ins. So I literally get up as late as possible to I think rest is best, as the saying goes. Certainly your sleep and that. And again, I literally just come down, obviously spend a bit of time with the wife and kids, have a laugh with that. Am I the most sociable on a game of a day? No, if I'm honest with you, because I'm so focused. No, I'm literally just sort of just keep myself to myself and that. But more importantly, I'm just a man who sort of comes down, has his breakfast, and then obviously get my pre-match sort of ready to eat and everything like that, and then I will leave the exact same time, every single one. If I've got to be, say if it was at Millwall and I've got to be in at 12:30, I'll always leave an hour. You know, the journey would take me half hour, 35 minutes, but I don't want to be late, and I don't want to be that stress where a bit of traffic could come. Certainly in London, you never know what's around the next bend or anything like that. So I'm a routine man and that. But once that game's finished, I'm a dad. You know, and I come home and I relax and unwind with the family and that. But that again, when I was young, I'd bring football home. You know, I would, and if I didn't perform well, I'm angry and sort of thinking, oh, what could I have done better, and look back on the game and that. But when I had kids, that's what sort of calmed me down, you know, and don't bring work home. Of course, sometimes you do. Of course you do. You know, we're human at the end of the day. But that is my sort of motto. As soon as I come to that front door, bang, I'm a dad, you know, and I've got to be the best version of me in front of my kids.
And that's nice. Talk about pressure, mate, and obviously we're talking probably about pressure on generic match days, right? But we actually just spoke, obviously, before, as we walk into your house, there's an incredible picture of you obviously lifting a trophy, you know, post-match day, Wembley, armband on, like incredible moment, and you've played in 5 Wembley playoff finals.
Yeah, 5, mate.
Does the routine or does the mindset or does the way that you feel change for the huge games, or did you deal with it exactly the same way?
Wembley's different. It is. Any sort of time, obviously, to play an iconic stadium like that, but that is going to be different. Obviously, the problem with the playoffs is it's a long 2-week sort of window. So obviously you've got a lot of downtime and relaxing and all that, but at the back of the mind, you always know what's coming. And again, you get the sort of people wanting the tickets, you're sorting bits and bobs out, and again, it just seems that it takes an age to come and everything like that. But a normal big game, like I said, I've been fortunate playing like Mill, West Ham and that, like, I just treat it as another game. I really, really do. Again, I've probably got my mates going like, it's just a one, like, and I'm like, yeah. But like, I get it, I do, I really, really do. But as a player, I know what's expected of me and that, so I've got to be the best version I possibly can. So again, I've just got to go in the mindset of obviously doing my job and being the best version of me for myself and obviously my teammates on the day.
So give us an insight, mate, then into these Wembley Cup finals. Obviously, you're saying that they're bigger and that there is a different feeling. What sort of different feeling is that? And also, as a follow-on from that, mate, what advice could you give to people that are feeling like they're approaching a big pressure game, whether that be like a cup final? I don't know what level, obviously, people listening to this podcast are playing in, but it might be a cup final, it might be a trial game that they have to perform well in.
It's one of them, Joe. You know what's at stake. There's an opportunity for you to go get promoted and be a part of history of that football club, because it's one of them, winners will always be remembered. It's a place you don't want to be a loser at, because I'm telling you now, it's the most hardest thing you could possibly take, is losing the playoff final, because again, all that hard work for that 190-minute match, and again, sometimes it's not meant to be, and obviously sort of things don't go for you. But I'm telling you now, Joe, when you win, mate, it's sort of like the best moment you could possibly have. Again, I could talk about this for days. I don't know how much film you got, but no, it's one of them. But again, the whole build-up of it, the night before, of course, you're going to have a little bit of a sleepless night, thinking about the pros and cons and obviously the positives, the minuses and everything like that. A few things obviously do creep in your mind, but for me, it's when you turn up and you see the fans and the flags flying, because I've been quite fortunate that when I've gone, it's been good crowds, 60, 70,000 and everything like that. So, and obviously being the London team, obviously predominantly, obviously white and blue, and I had a playoff final with Brentford as well. So obviously the closest team to Wembley and that. So obviously it weren't far from them. But again, you have that build up, the journey up to it. You're looking at the Wembley, and like, as a kid, you remember watching the cup finals, thinking, "Wow, if I could play there." But showing me age here, that was the old Wembley, unfortunately. but no, it's one of them. But I'm telling you now, as soon as you get in that dressing room, it's game mode. It is game mode, and you obviously go and look at the pitch, and that, and obviously you have a quick wave to your family, but then all of a sudden you've got to switch, and you've got to be ready, because you don't want no regrets on that day. You don't want to look back and go, "What if I done that? What if I done this?" Because you only got one chance and one day to do it, and obviously 90 minutes to do that as well. And it just passes so quick, Joe. Honestly, I promise you, it passes so quick. The build-up, 2 weeks before the game, and then all of a sudden you're there, kick-off, 45 minutes, half-time, bang, oh my God, you lifting the trophy or not? And it's done. You think, oh my God, you're sitting at home, you're like, oh wow, it's completely all done and that, and yeah, I only won 2 of them, Joe, out of 5, and obviously I've had the heartache of it as well. The disappointment, and it is hard to come back the next season. It is, honestly. I think you can, if you look over the years, a lot of the teams who lose the playoff final struggle at the start. They really, really do struggle at the start, because that psychological side, it does hurt you, sort of an anger and everything like that. But I've been very fortunate that the ones I've lost, the following season I've gone up.
Oh, really?
There's a route, there is, that's what seems to happen. So you need a good strength of character and a willingness to push on, and again, I've said it, you're going to have a lot more sort of lows than highs in this game. That's the reality of it, you do, but I'm telling you now, the highs, you grab onto that and you remember that for the rest of your life.
I had a good conversation with a young player on loan at the club that obviously I've been playing for this season, and I remember him asking me like he was low, he's not been picked. And I sort of said, listen, you got to get used to this feeling, because there's maybe, I sort of went through it with him, maybe 6 or 7 times in my, like, obviously I don't have a career like yours, mate, but 6 or 7 times, I think that was all worth it. So you've got to get like prepared, obviously, for lows much more than you do highs. And you've just obviously given us an insight, mate, into 5 Wembley Cup finals, obviously countless big games apart from that you'd have won and lost.
Yeah.
But those cup finals that you lose, that you say are difficult to come back from, how do you, how specifically did you, give us an insight into the process of you finishing a cup final and losing, and then turning up for the next season thinking, this year I'm going to get promoted?
It's one of them, obviously it takes a couple of weeks, you've got to unwind, you've got to take your mind off it and everything like that, but the next version you've got to come back all fighting on the same page, that's everyone. But I think you have a good team, a good teammates, and I say mates because obviously you're all fighting on the same page and fighting forward and that, because if you get a sort of weak dressing room, and when I say by weak dressing room, once one person sort of don't want to do something, it's a domino effect, then 2, then 3, then 4. And then before you know it, that's half the team. So you've got to have a dressing room who want the best for, obviously, yourself. Obviously, how selfish this sort of game is. You've got to look out for yourself first. But more importantly, the good dressing rooms, you have the teammates who are pushing each other, But for me, my drive is, I don't want no one outdoing me. That's the way I've always been, Joe. I've sort of, in pre-season, I sort of try and grab onto someone. That's the sort of man I am, and I'll let them drag me round. But when we get near the finish line, I will be in front. That's what I want to be. So if you start over-talking me, Joe, I'll over-talk you. That's my sort of mindset. That's what I want to be known as, to sort of, you're challenging me a little bit, so I'm going to challenge you back. And that's what good dressing rooms are, because if I challenge you, you're challenging me again, and obviously someone think, oh, they see that, and they're challenging you, and again it goes round the dressing room, and then all of a sudden you got winners there who want to push each other, strive for the best for them. Of course, it's for them, because obviously you want to get the next sort of move and see where it takes you, and the best career you could possibly have. But the best teams for me is the ones who have the driving force to drive each other going forward.
So I'm interested, mate, because as your career has sort of progressed, and you're right, you went to obviously Bristol Rovers and you never made it back to Millwall, which is sort of like the...
I knew it was the end of that one, Joe, don't worry about it, mate.
Then that was the natural pathway of your
That's why I'm doing the youth team now, mate, to get back.
And you obviously end up going to Crawley and have now obviously just been on loan at Dorking. Yeah. But in these, I guess, because this will be relatable for people, is that almost every time that you've been fit for a game, more often than not, you've been picked. Yep. But in the moments that you haven't, or the moments that you've left clubs to go and seek other opportunities, or if for whatever reason the club that you've been at the time has sort of seen your services and deemed them like that they're not wanted anymore, or whatever. Like, how have you managed to obviously be continuously the best version of yourself and deal with, we're talking about highs and lows specifically, but deal with, I guess the word is rejection. It's almost not, but how have you been able to consistently be able to deal with that and still go elsewhere and be able to perform as well as what you have done? It's
one of them, Joe. I'll be honest with you, I don't want to waste this career. I've never wanted to waste a moment of it, and wasting the moment is, for me, not being part of the squad or sitting on the bench week in, week out, sitting there, seeing other people play. For me, I've always looked at it that you're taking food out of my kid's mouth. The person who's got my shirt, that's how I look at it, because that's what everyone's in work of life to obviously give the best possible lifestyle I can possibly give to my family. So if I wasn't playing... excuse me, if I wasn't playing, I'm looking at it that you're taking something from me and everything like that. But I just sit there and I just watch the game go by, and of course I think, I should be playing, which all players should be thinking, and I'm better than him, I'm better than that. But it comes a time where you're like, no, enough's enough, that you have to obviously go and move and enjoy your football. And when I say you enjoy your football, you only enjoy it by playing on a Saturday. I've been at home on Saturday afternoon watching Gillette Soccer Saturday. That's not for me. Or if I'm not watching that, I've got my wife and kids dragging me out somewhere. And that gets expensive, Joe, on a Saturday when you're not playing, So that's why I don't want to retire, mate, because I know how expensive these weekends can be. But no, it's just, I've just always wanted to play. I don't want to waste a moment. I really, really don't. Or look back and go, what if I'd have done this? Or what if I'd done that, sorry. And I'm just very fortunate that there's decisions I've had to make at key moments, because it weren't easy leaving Mill. You know, it wasn't at a time when I wasn't playing and everything. It was a tricky one. And at Brentford as well, because obviously I sort of lost my place and that, and then I wasn't involved and that. But again, I'm just sort of, the background I'm from, I look at it and I think, yeah, you've got to earn your money. You know, that's what I really, really do look at it. And if I'm not playing, I'm not earning my money, and I just want to go and play and playing as many games as possible. And I'm just so pleased and grateful that the amount of the games I've got under my belt. You know, I look back at that with, yes, it's beyond my wildest dreams, Joe. You know, I never could imagine half the career I would have had. You know, I would have been grateful if I just played one for my hometown, for my home club. Like, but to have them amount of games behind me, I will look back with it. I do look back. You know me, Joe. I'm not. I like to keep myself to myself, and like, well, I hope I'm not flash. Or that's just not me, Joe. You know, I just sort of like a man in sort of like a jeans and t-shirt, and probably got this in about 7 different colours. You know, and everything like. And I just want to be. I don't want to stand out or all that. I just want to be. I just want to be me, Tony Craig. You know, and as long as my family, my wife and kids, and obviously my mates look at me and say, he ain't changed one bit. That's all I can ask for, you know, because, sorry, mate, because obviously in this game you meet a lot of characters. You know, some characters which I've got so much time for, and then some characters I've got no time whatsoever. You know, it's different variety of players, people, different ages, you know, and everything like that. But for me, I can honestly look back and say I haven't changed one bit. Which is something which I've got proud. I'm proud of it. Proud of that as well.
Yeah, so you should be, mate. And but see, obviously, 20 years is a long time to play football, mate. And you've seen the game go from, it was professional, obviously, when you started, but I'm going to use the word professionalisation of the game has got obviously such that now we're obviously both playing at this like National League level. That's probably the best standard it's ever been, and it's the most professional it's ever been. How were you able to, like, obviously touching on the latter stages of your career, because obviously in maybe the first part it was like football obviously was what it was, and then we use that word again, professionalisation of the game has become, you know, sports science, how like, and people weren't going out tone like you explained at the start of like 3-4 times a week, right?
Of course, yeah.
But how have you been able to obviously continually perform very well across obviously whilst the game has been changing in standard, in speed, in formations, in tactics, in all these different aspects, like you've been able not only to keep up but to excel. Like, how have you managed to do that?
Thanks for the excel bit, Joe. But no, I'm joking. No, it's one of them. Again, we go back to that, say the speed, and obviously because the game's got quicker. It really, really has, Joe. You know, obviously you don't get as much time on the ball, and ball's like constantly coming back in, and it's sort of, honestly, and the people are changing now. You know, they're a lot bigger, stronger, fitter. Like I said, fitter is massive now. No one comes back pre-season unfit now, do they? You know, and no body fat and everything like that. So again, but don't forget, I had to adjust. I had to move over to stay in. That, and just them key little moments and decisions that sort of gone right for me, you know. And again, like, amount of tablets, you go into training grounds now, you know, you're putting about 6-7 tablets down your throat these days, aren't you? You know, and obviously you've got protein shakes, which obviously work, and the recovery, right, and you're getting recovery pumps around your legs. So again, I use all that. You know, I've got recovery pumps around here, around my legs, and obviously I go like to the pool and obviously recover well, and I do like sort of cool downs, and I won't say stretching, Joe, because I've never been the most best at that, and I still can't touch my toes today. But no, it's one of them. The game's adapted, and I've just been thankfully that I'm one of them people. If you tell me something to do, I'll do it. You know, if it's right or wrong, if it's right, obviously I'd do it. And obviously, if it's not for me, it's not for me. But I haven't lost anything by trying to do and trying to be better for me, and obviously recovery. And there's loads of stuff over the years we've had to try and get down your throat and everything like that, and you're like, nah, this ain't working for me, or you feel a bit lethargic and that. So yeah, it's just the game's evolving day in, day out, and the amount of sports science people now, You know, it just seems every club you go into now, they're getting more and more. And they're getting younger and younger. And everything like that, and they're just leaning on each other and that. And for me, I'm an old school person. If it works for me, I will stick with it to the end. You know, like I said, I've got someone told me I get cramps, I eat salt vinegar crisps. I've done that. You know, I have beetroot juice. You know,
I have beetroot juice.
Massive. Yeah. I have turmeric shots, which I think for recovery is fantastic. You know, certainly on the old AstroTurf pitches now. You know, because obviously they put a toll on your body, and that. And again, I think if I try something once and I do well, that's me. I'm in. If I try it and it don't go well, I won't touch that stuff again. So I'm one of them, Joe. You know, you could tell me something today, like thinking, yeah, try this. I will try it, and if it does well, again, I'll continue taking that to however long my career may go.
Let's talk about obviously we've not got too long left, mate. But let's talk about now, really, in terms of what stage you're at now. Obviously, this season, for example, you joined Dorking halfway through, and Dorking was struggling at the time, and I actually, like the 3 games, actually Aldershot, we played them 3 times this year and won all 3 games, and I'm not really too sure how, because I think Dorking are a really good team, but obviously at the time, for whatever reason, when you came in, they were struggling a little bit and finding it difficult to win games, and you came in and had a massive impact on their fortunes both on and off the pitch. You had a real influence, and obviously it ended up between you and George Frankham and Jason Pryor, who were sort of like the 3 main players that came in, obviously, to help Dorking at the time, and ended up being comfortable in staying in the league. But the reason why I'm asking you about this is how do you have the impact that you did? Like for players, obviously joining different clubs, or it might be a loan, or it might be they've moved in the summer. Like, how do you go into a football club and have such a positive impact like you did this year at Dorking?
Joe, if I'm honest, I just walked in and just be me. You know, I think I've always been vocal. I've always put my opinion across. And on the pitch, I'm a talker. You know, I'm a shouter. A lot of times probably wrong, you know, but I need to be shouting and sort of get my adrenaline pumping. I know once I'm shouting all that and I get the adrenaline, that's my best version. You know, I can feel it coming, like the adrenaline pumping throughout my body. And it's one of them, I went in there just to go and enjoy my football. You know, go and play. There were 16 games to the end of the season when I went in there. And no, it was just a great bunch of lads. You know, really, really were. And don't forget, Joe, it's the first time I've gone part-time. I'm training in Tuesday and Thursday evenings.
I think there's only them and Dorking and Wealdstone, maybe even Maidstone, but I think Maidstone trained some days. It was like the evenings. I think Wealdstone and Dorking are the 2 clubs.
So again, I've had to adapt massively because I've never trained in the evening, and I'll be honest with you, I'm doing some training at Millwall, so that's Monday and Thursday evenings. So my world sort of turned upside down, where all of a sudden I got all the morning spare to do what I want to do, but not funny. My wife's at work, my kids at school, my mates are at work. Gets a bit boring, mate, you know. But no, again, so we're part-time. We're playing against, obviously, teams who are training day in, day out and that. A lot of them boys are obviously going to work in the morning. And they're, again, like I talk about my dad sacrificing for me to obviously come home from work and eat and then go. They're coming back, eating, going to training, getting back from training probably about 10:30, 11. They've got to go work the next day, you know, which is very, very difficult. But no, it was great bunch of lads, all on fighting in the same direction. The same goal was obviously to keep the club up, but more importantly, there's some good players there. Joe, you know,
I've heard Dorking as well. I really enjoyed watching them.
Really, really good players. But some of them must be doing exceptionally well because there's some fantastic jobs they've got. I won't say what some of them have got and that, but I'm telling you now, the football part you can tell why they obviously want to stick for their career going forward and that. And no, for me, I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be the vocal person to go and do my job. You know, I've always said, yeah, it is a job. My job was to keep that club in the league. That's what I was signed to do. And some of the boys were sort of quiet and keep themselves and not really opinionated and everything like that. But once you go in somewhere and you talk to them, they all want to open. they all want to have a discussion, all want to say this and that. But again, it was just, I think at the time he made 3 good signings. You know, like I said, 2 other good signings. Sorry, Jason Pryor and obviously George Frankham. George Frankham, for me, should still be playing league football.
Yeah, he's gifted,
you know?
isn't he?
Yeah, no, very good player. You know, he was the captain at Crawley Football Club, and it's one of them. He should still be in the league. So that was a fantastic signing for the club. And Jason Pryor come in and he scored goals. You know, and he
scored some really important goals towards the end, didn't he? Yeah.
Where you could sort of just leave the ball up there. You could sort of hustle and bustle and get fouls and that. But there was a lot of good players in the door already, and it was just one. Sometimes we just needed to guide the people around me a little bit. You know, sometimes they'd be running off here, there, and everywhere, and you're thinking.
Dorking played like a bit like obviously when we played them, they were described as sort of like a Bielsa Leeds.
Yep. As
in, like, it's chaos. Like there's people absolutely everywhere. There's guys that will run out from one side of the pitch to the other. Like you do well, obviously, to keep a clean sheet against Dorking. We end up managing to do it 3 times, like ridiculous, like unbelievally.
So really, Joe, you're saying like
no, we conceded against.
Because you've kept 3 clean sheets. You've got to talk about it.
We conceded every other game.
Apart from them.
But no, and obviously what comes with that, and obviously people might be slightly interested in knowing what comes with the YouTube stuff, and obviously the manager is a character and is filmed online and stuff and gets a lot of views. What part of like that sort of the game did you just obviously went in there and accepted it, or like was it strange?
No, like, I'll be honest with you. When I first went in, the bloke who does the bunch of amateurs said to me, "Do you want to be involved?" And I said, "No, I'll be honest with you. I'd like to be in the background. That's me. You know, I'm not sort of looking for that sort of limelight or anything like that. The cameras are there. When I first went in, you know they're there. You know, you're thinking like it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, if I'm honest with you. I kept looking behind my shoulder and that, but then you do get used to them, you know. But again, for the club going forward, it's been fantastic. You know, it's got good recognition for the club. Obviously, the manager's obviously he's a good man. You know, he says it how it is. But more importantly, the promises he tells you, he always keeps. Which, for me, that's good going forward. You know, because like I said, you get a lot of bluffers in this game. Promise you this, promise you that, but never come to tuition or never do it. You know, but again, for that club, it works. You know, it really, really does, because considering the history they've had, the promotions they've had over the years, is fantastic, and fair play to them, because they're not shy in saying, talking about it. And but no, that club's certainly going in one direction.
Yeah, I like that.
And that, you know, again, I'll be honest with you, I'd never seen the programme before until I went, and now I've been there, I've watched a good number of them, and it certainly you can certainly see a lot behind the scenes and that. And no, it's Joe, I enjoyed it. You know, I did enjoy it there. Again, I got the bug back, the love back. You know, I felt appreciated again. That was a big thing. I felt appreciated. I really, really did. You know, it was one of them. It was a difficult time before that, but it's one which with that move, when it come, I took it on full force and went, "Come on, let's go." I know, and thankfully, I'm just so pleased. I got we got the job done.
I've watched obviously a few of those episodes. One of them's hilarious because they play against Bromley, and obviously Webby is playing in that game, and the manager's caning Webby because of the size of his head, which is it's just so funny. But see, mate, like moving forward, when you're at the stage in your career in which you are, like at what point, and obviously people maybe who you know, I'm obviously a little bit younger, but still similar tone, as you get to our age and you start thinking, right, like when is football finished and what is next? How is it difficult for you to, obviously you're trying to be the best version of yourself as you can be football wise, but in the back of your mind you're thinking, what I'm going to do once football's finished? Yeah. Like, how are you able at the moment to combine the two?
At the moment, I'm very fortunate that I've already got my B and UEFA A licence. You know, I worked for that. I've had that for a good number of years now. For me, I just thought I can get them early through my career. And in this profession, Joe, you know, it's like this profession opens doors. And it was one of them where I thought if I get the A licence early, that I can just put it in the drawer and it's there ready for when I retire. You know, and it was probably one of the best decisions again I sort of made, because now I haven't got to worry about that going forward. But now I'm very lucky that I'm doing some bits at Millwall. You know, I'm very thankful that Scott Fitzgerald let me come in and do the 15 and 16s on a Monday and Wednesday evening, and let me take games on Sundays, and obviously, which don't happen often. If there's a game on Saturday, that the club will very kindly let me come in and help out and take that as well. So it's one of them I just want to learn, Joe. You know, I'm going round to different clubs to obviously watch their training sessions and nick ideas. You know, that's what it's all about, Joe. You know, it's networking as well. You know, meeting new people. You just never know what can happen in football, do you? You know, there's a lot of people that I'm very thankful clubs will let me come in and see what more importantly their club's about, but the way the manager conducts himself, does their sessions and everything like that. Of course, Joe, you know, football's a game of opinions. The way one manager does his thing could be completely different to mine, but there's no right or wrong answer. It's just the way I believe football should be played, or the way he should be, the way obviously their manager believes it should be played. But again, it's brilliant, Joe, because there's a lot of people taking time out and giving me their time to go and learn, you know, and I'm going in, I've got notepads up at home, which I've kept throughout my career, and there's managers who I've taken bits off of and everything like that. And again, you know, I've been fortunate. I've had some good managers throughout my time, and there's a lot I've learnt off them. There's a lot of stuff I will take off of them as well, and that. But again, I just, as I was saying, training at night, that when I've had the days off, I've gone into other clubs' training grounds. So instead of sitting here wasting my time just watching TV and everything like that, I thought, well, I've got to be active here and everything like that. And again, it's been some good times, and I've met some good people, and I say some new mates, you know, because again, the game is only a few sort of thousands, well, probably thousands, Joe, isn't there? You know, with the players we've probably played with, probably 7, 8, who I can actually say are mates. You know, and the other ones I say football mates, like, because it's such a turnaround, this game. And at the end of the day, at a club, you're just a number. At the end of the day, you are a number, and it's one of them that, yeah, them 7 or 8 mates who I call my mates, because obviously I've been through a lot with them, and that. And again, it's just I call you one of them, Joe. It's one of them. So I say 9 now. I'm joking, but no, it's one of them. So for me, that I want to go learning now, and I'm in a position now where I'm going to these clubs, and obviously I'm still getting paid doing it, you know, obviously by my employer at the moment, so I can afford to go and do it, which is brilliant.
I think an overriding theme seems to be, mate, of your career is your willingness to learn, your willingness to accept, your humility to understand. And I think in the game, the way this sort of game's going, you see a lot more characters at the moment that aren't those things, that don't want to learn, that think they know the game, that don't need to know any answers, that think they know all the answers. And I think you obviously, having spoken to you for the last hour, I think it's a real insight into what emotional intelligence in football looks like, and how being the way that you are can obviously not only open doors, but allow you to have a successful career, but you know, being able to perform without this huge ego that is ultimately, in my opinion, if you do have a huge ego, it will weigh you down eventually. Like, people will spot it. Like, when you've obviously played in your career, I'm not expecting you to name names, but obviously you'd have seen a host of different people, host of different characters. Like, what in your experience are the personality traits of people that are talented but don't succeed?
Oh, Joe, to me, there's so many players there with so much ability, but they're just not consistent enough. You know, that's the thing. Like, and how many good trainers we've seen over the years, but when it comes to a game day, they're non-existent. But for me, I was very fortunate. I think when the time I come through as a youth team, it was hard. You know, it was really hard, Joe. You know, you had to be a man. If you showed any sign of weakness, you weren't surviving. You know, and obviously the club I done my YTS at was unique, and that. But I promise you, for me, I was very, very quiet, even more quiet now, coming to the club I was at, And within 6 months, I was a man, because I knew that for me to survive and to come through, I had to stand up to these. You know, of course, like back then, I just don't get how youth teams and first teams don't interact as much nowadays. You know, you had to do jobs. You know, they weren't pretty jobs. That's the thing, like doing the boots and cleaning the changing room and going to get like kit and everything like that. But for me, I think it was so grounding. I think you get the respect from the first team players as well, you know, because I think they showed that who were the grafters and that. But for me, Joe, I've always wanted to be that grafter. You know, I always wanted to be sort of at the front, show what I'm all about. Call me busy. It's fine, I'll take that, you know, but there's a lot of people who think they can just get through life without being challenged and everything like that. And unfortunately, that sort of only goes for so far and so long. And then when they do finally get challenged because they've had everything handed to them, they can't hack it or they can't adapt. And all of a sudden why aren't they the best player anymore? And that because, not be funny, there's people behind you who've been working harder to get in front of you and push you aside. Where before it was like you had all the natural talent and belief and everything given to you, but that only lasts for so long because you got to work at things day in, day out and learn. You got to learn every single day. You know, that's the thing in football. Of course, there's going to be times when you're going to be low, but you've got to be, well, how can I get out of that? Is that by working harder, or is it just accepting it, saying, "No, it ain't going to change"? The ones who go, "Well, hold up a minute, I'm going to give myself and be the best version. I'm going to go out there, learn, and more importantly, be the busy one who stays out after training, doing the extra runs, doing the extra crossing." You know, like I said, people didn't see that what I was doing back then. Innit? You know, when I come in, I was getting called the busy so and so. You know, and everything like that. But no, I just think to myself, well, people got so much knowledge in this game. So much knowledge in life going forward and everything like that. So why not go and ask them questions? Why not? Because people will give their time to anyone as long as you're a good bloke or at that time a good kid. Because like I said, it must be pleasing for them to go and ask them questions. It's pleasing for me if someone can ask me a question because I think, well, is that the only question you got? Ask me more. I want to give my time to absolutely anyone, but no, there's too many people who sort of accept things. You know, like I said, when I wasn't playing, I could have easily sat at Millwall. I could have easily retired there, Joe. You know, it would have been not a problem. But I'd have been done years ago. Obviously, last time I left when I went to Bristol Rovers, I could have easily retired and gone into the youth team and all that. But no. Why should I let someone retire me? I want to retire myself. That's what I want to do at the end of the day. And that, of course, people will probably say, yeah, your legs are gone. Well, hold up a minute, mate. No, they're not. I don't think they are. And hopefully that I'll be in the game long enough that, yeah, something will happen. I know that day will come. Hopefully not not soon, but when that day comes, I'll be the first person to hold up my hand and go, yeah, that's me. You know, because I don't want to hold people back, or as I said, I don't want to be like, well, it's one of them. I can just do the training and all that. No. Once I know I'll be done. But again, hopefully that'll be in a few years to come.
Well, all the man of the matches and a team of the week for the National League that you've been involved in since you've gone to Dorking, mate. I can't see you stopping anytime soon.
Cheers, Joe.
To finish, mate, the final question that I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to a young Tony Craig who's just starting out his career?
Oh wow. Don't look back with regrets. You know, it's one of them. Obviously, you have good games, you had bad games. Back in the day, I always used to look back negatively on the bad games and that, and then the good ones was, oh, okay, yes, but it's done. You know, but for me, it was just always, if I'd started again now, I'd always say look forward, because you can't change what's happened and everything like, you know, and I think for me, in life, I think sometimes the script's written, you know, sometimes just things happen, you think, wow, where's that come from, you know, like I said, so it's one of them, I just don't want to look back, you know, just always look forward. That's the advice I give myself.
Cheers, Tone. You know, I want to thank you, obviously, once again. I did so at the start for obviously inviting me into your home. Secondly, for giving us such an incredible insight, mate, into obviously what the game looks like and how you can be successful. And I don't want this obviously to sound like that we're talking to somebody who's just at the latter stages of their career, but you know, you're still thriving and playing exceptionally well. So obviously, like, wish you well, mate, for the next however many years that you keep playing. Anybody obviously who is listening to this or watching this that wants to reach out, and because Tony's got no social media, if you want to ask him any questions, ask me, I'll ask him. We're also, this channel, don't really ask much from people who listen to it, but we're gearing in or closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and that would be huge for us. So if you do want to help, click the subscribe button. I don't usually ask that, but I'm going to put pressure on people who listen to this to do that. But yeah, all good. Thank you, Tony. That was incredible, mate.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you, Joe. Good seeing you, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it, pal.
Brilliant.